Did you know that the suicide rate among African Americans has risen over the last decade and that it is still a taboo subject in the African American community? Hello, my name is Dr. Carolyn T. Long, and I am a therapist, minister, author, and consultant. And I want to talk to you a few brief moments about suicide in the African American community. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention reports that Black Americans have a lifetime prevalence rate of attempted suicide of 4.1, which is similar to that same rate for the larger population, which is 4.6%. Young males between the age of 20 and 24 had the highest suicide rate in the Black population per 100,000 people. Suicide is the third leading cause of death for African American males between the ages of 15 and 24. Does that concern you? It concerns me, especially in the fact that we're not really talking about it. African American beliefs about suicide serves as a protective factor to keep this a taboo subject. Historically, the religious community has condemned suicide, while the white secular community regards suicide as unacceptable and a behavior of white culture, which is alien to Black culture. The fact that the attempted suicide rate among Blacks and the general population are pretty much the same, then it is clear that suicide is not a white thing. The reality is that Blacks are killing themselves and no one is talking about it. The majority of suicides occur among Caucasian adolescents, and consequently, the interventions are based on Caucasian adolescent suicidal behavior. Yet the rates among Native Americans, Hispanics, and African American adolescents have increased dramatically over the past decade. It's been suggested that racial and minority adolescents exhibit suicidal risk in a different fashion than do Caucasian adolescents, and so therefore they may not be appropriately assessed when using the criteria for Caucasian adolescents. Therefore, it is important for you to know the risk factors as well as what the statistics are. The risk factors for suicide among African American males include being under 35, residing in the southern or the northeastern states, using cocaine, having a firearm in the house, threatening others with violence. For example, among young Black youths ages 15 through 19, the rate of suicide has doubled since 1980, rising from 5.6 to 8.1 per deaths per 100,000 in 1996. For African Americans between the age of 15 and 24, as I think I've already stated, suicide is now the third leading cause of death. The African American or Black church remains in the center of all African American life, and this has been borne out in recent research by the Barna Research Group in California as late as 2009 that says that the Black church is still the center of all African American life. Therefore, since the Black church is the center of all African American life, it behooves pastors and church leaders to get the additional equipping that they will need in order to be relevant and to minister to those who may be suicidal and who may have come to the point of hopelessness and helplessness. When talking to pastors and church leaders about the subject, I have several goals in mind. The first goal is to raise their awareness about suicide in the African American community, thus dismantling the taboo nature of this deadly behavior. And secondly, I want to inform them about the connection between depression and suicide. Thirdly, I want them to understand the risk factors in suicide. Fourthly, to gain the skills of knowing how to minister to the person who is sitting in front of them or who may be on the telephone, who is threatening suicide. And lastly, to know when and how to connect with a professional when they are dealing with a suicidal saint. For instance, there are 3 statements that I want each one to remember when dealing with a potentially suicidal person. The statements are these: the answers you get will depend on the questions you ask. Number 2, the actual threat of suicide needs to be brought out in the open in order for you to help the person. And statement number 3, suicide not talked about can prove deadly. I have also developed a suicide competency test for use in ministry. It deals with the basic information about suicide and some basic things to consider, like the 3 statements that I have just shared with you. If you would like more information about how to minister to your congregation on this subject, if you would like more information or would like to have the leaders in your church be made privy to this information, then contact us and we would love to serve you. Thank you for listening.